Okay, let's unpack this. When you or someone you care about is facing cancer, the real hope, the deep hope, is for a longer life that's overall survival, OS, or, a truly better quality of life, QOL.
Absolutely. That's fundamentally what matters most to patients.
Right. But here's the surprising thing we found in this deep dive. A lot of new cancer drugs, they actually get approved based on something, well, something different. These things called surrogate endpoints.
Yeah, that's right.
So our mission today is really to cut through that complexity. We want to understand what these surrogates are, why we use them, and maybe ask the tough question. Are they really delivering what patients hope for? So it feels like there's this core tension right at the start. Patients want more time or better time, OS or QOL.
Hmm.
But the data shows a lot, maybe most, new cancer drugs get the green light based on, say, tumor shrinkage or maybe just delaying progression for a while. It seems like a mismatch.
It really does. And what's fascinating, or maybe concerning, is why these surrogates got so popular. The big promise is speed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speeding up drug development, potentially, cutting trial times down by maybe 11, even 19 months sometimes.
Wow. Okay. That's significant.
And it also means trials can be smaller, less expensive, which, has its own incentives for drug developers.
Yeah.
And the idea is faster to patients.
Okay, so help us get clear on the difference then. Clinical endpoints versus these surrogates.
Right. So the clinical endpoints, those are the direct ones you mentioned. Overall survival, living longer. Quality of life, living better. Simple.
Yeah, okay.
Surrogate endpoints are, well, they're indirect measures. Stand-ins, kind of.
Yeah.
Often things like overall response rate, RR, that's basically tumor shrinkage.
Okay.
Or, very commonly, progression-free survival, PFS. That means how long until the tumor starts growing again or spreading.
Right. PFS, I've heard that one a lot.
And sometimes disease-free survival, DFS, in after-surgery settings. Now, here's a really critical distinction, though. There's what we call a patient-level surrogate. Think of it like, say, having no detectable cancer after initial breast cancer treatment. That's usually a good sign for that individual's outcome.
Okay, makes sense.
But then there's a trial-level surrogate, and this is much harder to prove. It means showing that a drug's effect on the surrogate, like shrinking tumors, reliably predicts that it will actually make patients live longer overall.
Ah, so it has to predict the OS benefit for the whole group in the trial.
Exactly. And here's the kicker, the really stark thing from the research. Finding that strong, reliable link between most surrogates and actual survival, it's pretty rare, found in less than a quarter of the cases studied.
Less than a quarter. Wow, that's a huge gap.
It's a big validation gap, yeah.
Okay, so let's drill down on progression-free survival, PFS then. You said it's most common surrogate. How reliable is it?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting and maybe worrying. Despite being used all the time, PFS often has a pretty weak link to overall survival.
Why is that? Why doesn't delaying progression automatically mean living longer?
There are a few reasons. First, the way progression is defined using scan rules, it's a bit arbitrary. There isn't always a clear biological reason why that specific amount of growth means someone won't live as long. Plus, think about survival post-progression, or SPP. Patients might live quite a long time after their cancer progresses according to the scans. So any initial PFS benefit might just get washed out later.
Okay, I see. The later survival dilutes the early gain.
Exactly. And then there are potential biases in the trials themselves. Things like patients dropping out unevenly between the treatment group and the placebo group, or even how doctors read the scans, especially if they know which drug the patient is getting. That can skew the PFS results.
Right. And what about quality of life? Does PFS tell us anything about feeling better?
That's another major issue. PFS generally fails to correlate with QOL. Sometimes, actually, drugs that improve PFS can make people feel worse because of side effects.
Oh, wow.
Whereas drugs that genuinely improve OS, that make people live longer, they very rarely make quality of life worse. Usually they maintain or even improve it.
This all leads to the regulators, like the FDA. What's their stance? Are they approving drugs based on these shaky surrogates?
Increasingly, yes. And what's concerning is that they're granting regular approvals, not just the initial accelerated ones, based on surrogates, sometimes even from trials with just one group, no comparison arm.
And regular approvals don't require follow-up studies to confirm survival benefit, right? Unlike accelerated ones.
That's the key difference. Regular approval based on a surrogate often lacks that mandatory confirmation step, that safety net. And if you look at the bigger picture, the track record isn't great. Studies show something like 86% of drugs approved based only on surrogates still haven't shown an overall survival benefit years down the line.
86%. That's staggering. And it must lead to huge confusion for patients,
Like,
right?
you hear your tumor shrank or progression was delayed. You naturally think that means you'll live longer.
Of course.
Research shows that even when doctors give disclaimers, patients often still believe PFS means longer life. I mean, look at the name, progression-free survival. It sounds like survival.
Yeah, the name itself is a problem.
So much so that there are proposals to rename it something like progression-free interval, PFI, just to be clearer.
So really, the takeaway for you, the listener, is needing to understand, is this drug offering more time, genuinely,
Yeah.
a better life, or is it mainly changing a scan result?
That's the critical question.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean? Surrogates give us speed, clearly, but they seem to bring a lot of uncertainty about the real benefits.
Yeah, exactly. It raises that big question. How do we get good drugs to patients quickly, which we absolutely want to do, but also make sure they truly deliver on OS or QOL?
Is there a proposed solution?
Well, one idea gaining traction is this one-trial approach. Basically, design a single smarter trial from the start. Power it sufficiently to look at a surrogate for potential accelerated approval,
Okay, for speed.
but also power it to definitively measure overall survival for full approval later on. And importantly, measure quality of life directly, properly, throughout the trial. And make sure trials using surrogates are blinded to minimize bias.
That makes sense. Build in the confirmation from the beginning.
Right. Ensure we get the real answers eventually.
So the ultimate goal has to stay laser-focused on clear, patient-meaningful benefits. Longer life, better life.
Precisely.
So maybe the next time you hear about a breakthrough cancer drug, ask that question. Is the promise about living longer or better? Or is it mainly about a quicker read on a scan? Which one truly counts the most for you?